Welcome everybody. Thank you for signing up and thank you for participating in this webinar for parents, where we will be talking about parenting styles. So we're going to give just a few more minutes to get more people to join. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Okay, so we're going to get started. Now, we're talking about parenting styles, and the reason I'm offering this actually is because the whole world is definitely going through some unprecedented times. Everybody is at home, most people are at home, children are homeschooling or learning from home, parents are having to work from home as well, and it's definitely a bit of a challenging time for people in different ways. Now, one of the things that we can't get time off and go figure it out is parenting. That never stops. It's 24/7, and truly at this time we're seeing that it is indeed 24/7. So parenting styles is a concept that basically tells everybody, every parent, that you have a style when it comes to raising your children. You might never have consciously thought about it or processed what your style is, but most people have a style, and your style is either effective or ineffective. It's either yielding the results you want or it's not. And one of the only ways to figure out if it's working or not is for you to ask yourselves certain questions. So let me pause now and introduce myself for people who might not know me. My name is Yeti Williams, and I'm the founder and CEO of LagosMums, which is a parenting resource for moms, dads, and caregivers. I include caregivers because this covers everybody who has a touch point to a child, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, domestic staff, anybody who wants to do better when it comes to raising children that are in their care in some shape or form. So LagosMums is exactly that. It's a platform that encourages parents to have conversations, to make sure that we are being intentional and that we're doing all the things we can to improve our parenting. Now, I also am a certified life coach, a parenting coach, and I'm a neuro-linguistic programmer, practitioner. So when you put all these things together, in addition to being a content provider, writing articles, doing research about raising children, raising families, I'm also able to coach people to live their most abundant lives, to be their most effective in whatever area that they're trying to achieve success in, with a particular focus on mothers, parents, and their children. So let's jump right in. So I want to talk about some of the signs for you to know that your parenting style is not working. Now, the first is, especially at this time during this lockdown, you need to ask honestly, is there more tension in your house at this time? So is everybody tense? Is everybody, short on temper? What is the, if you were to measure the tension level in your house, what does it feel like? What score would you give it on, like a scale of 0 to 10? 0 being there's no tension in the house at all. Now, we're not talking about the anxiety that exists from what is going on outside. The pandemic is worldwide and everybody is feeling the effects of it in some shape or form, no doubt about that. But what we're talking about is your home. Does it feel like safe? Does it feel like a cocoon for yourself and your children at this time? Or is it tense? Is everybody walking on eggshells? So ask yourself that. Are you finding that you're shouting much more than ever before? Are you having to raise your voice at everybody, your children, your spouse, people that are living with you? You might have domestic staff that are actually in your house at this time living with you. Do you find that you're shouting at everybody? What about tantrums? Are your children throwing more tantrums than before? What about frustration? Is everybody frustrated and lashing out? What about communication? Do you find that as a family, you are actually communicating at this time? Are you talking? Are your children seeking you out to have conversations with you? Are they seeking you out to spend time with you, or would they rather have nothing to do with you at this time? What about moodiness? Are people moody? You know, what's the vibe in the house? Does everybody storm around and just come together for meal times barely, and they can't wait to get away from each other? What about feeling disconnected? Do people, are you hearing comments about feeling very disconnected from everything and feeling alone and concerned, and your children rather stay in their rooms, you know, just listening to music all day or on their devices all day? Are your children saying things like they can't wait to leave home? There's a difference between, of course, we want life to go back to normal and we want to be able to go about our business as usual. But there's a difference between that and a child just saying, I just cannot wait to leave this house. I just cannot wait to leave this home. And that is targeted a bit at their parents. And lastly, is your child fond of saying, oh, my parents just don't get me? These are just some rough questions to ask yourself so you can measure or, you know, give yourself a rough estimate on how your relationship with your children and your family, where exactly is it at this time? Especially because of this lockdown, this is a time where everybody's being given a report card. Essentially, your parenting is being given back to you as a report card at this time. Because whatever you think you were doing, whether or not you thought it was working, right now, right here, you are seeing it. You're seeing it live because your children are with you 24/7, okay? Now, I want to talk real quick about the choice of your childcare provider. Most people at some point are going to have somebody else care for their child. This could either be from when they're going to a creche or a daycare or early years, or you have a domestic staff in your house. The choice of your domestic caregiver, your childcare provider, is very critical because you need to understand that their style is likely to overshadow yours. Yes, let me say that again. Your domestic staff or your childcare provider, your child's primary childcare provider, their style is likely to overshadow yours as a parent. So it could be anybody. It could be a nanny, it could be a grandmom, granddad, it could be your siblings, your neighbor, whoever is your child's primary caregiver, their style of parenting and disciplining and caring is likely to overshadow yours as a parent because, sorry about that, because they are spending more time with your children than you are. So think of your home as a country and think about who you are giving a visa, giving an allowance to get into your home. Okay. Now, some children are fearful of their primary caregiver, and sometimes they're not able to tell you. Now, I want to talk about the influence of media. And this is playing a big part on our children and how it's affecting their lives. So what kind of movies is your child watching? Kids who are watching violent acts on TV are more likely to show aggressive behavior and to fear the world around them. So if your child is watching a lot of scary movies at this time, hearing a lot of scary things, they are more likely to be fretful and worried. So you have to be very careful about what you allow them to watch. You want to also ask about digital media behavior. Honestly ask yourself, how much screen time are you allowing your child to have? Too much screen time is not ideal. So you want to make sure that you are monitoring their screen time and you're making sure that it is manageable. Now, what about the apps or games that they're using? Psychologists are behind this. Let me explain what that means. So when the apps and games are being designed, they're being designed by psychologists to consciously make them habit forming and addictive because they release dopamine, and this makes your children and yourself continuously go back for more. Now, a child whose brain is heightened to a state of hypersensitivity is going to be acting out as a result of too much screen time. So you want to monitor that. Now, for children as well, video games can be confusing because in a video game, they're being encouraged many times to be violent, to be shooting, to be fighting, and that's how they win and kill the enemy. So many times they can bring this aggression into real life. So it's really important that you also manage, because you can have all the best intentions in the world to be the best in to be the most intentional parent in the world. However, if the media and the things your child is consuming online is negating all your intentionality, your child is not going to be doing very well. It's going to be negating the work that it is that you think that you're doing. Okay, so we're going to be talking about all of this because they all play a part. You also want to make sure that you are identifying your child's role model. Who does your child call a role model? Who are they looking up to? Right now, most children are at home 24/7, have access to the internet with no control, no screen time limit. So whoever they think their role model is, they're spending a lot of time right now with that person. So you want to ask all these questions. You want to keep in mind that this generation is digital native. So they're used to life on the internet. Everything for them is digital first. So media plays a huge part in their lives. And it's not like when maybe we were growing up and the internet wasn't widespread, cable was not widespread, the things you could watch were very limited. Right now, your child can get access to anybody blow by blow when they want, if they want. So let's keep that in mind, okay? Now, I want us to talk about identifying your style. So this is where we are, and this is what we're trying to, this is where we are, and we want to make sure right now that we are able to identify our styles. Okay. So first up is your authoritarian parenting style. That's the first type we're going to talk about. Parents with an authoritarian style have very high expectations of their children. It's a very dictator style, and they're more likely to be the shouters in the house. Some common traits of the authoritarian style: they believe their children should be seen and not heard. They believe that when it comes to rules, it is their way or the highway. They don't really take their children's feelings into consideration. They provide very little in the way of feedback and nurturance, so they just back orders and give orders, and they're not really spending time listening to whether it's working for your child or not, or whether or not it's affecting your child negatively. They tend to punish mistakes very harshly. They're very high on limits and low on love and warmth. And the children tend to be told what to do and are very compliant until they get a chance to leave home. That's when you see those children who the first time they leave home to go to boarding school or they leave home to go to university is when a different personality comes out and everybody around them is wondering, where did that come from? Who is this child? How come? So you want to be very clear that, being authoritarian and being very militaristic or like a dictator in your parenting style does not bring out a child who maybe really wants to stay around you. They're operating from fear. So some pros of this style is that your children will seem to be very obedient. And I say seemingly because they're probably obedient out of fear, and the first chance they get to show an alternative side to who they are, they're probably going to take advantage of that. So you want to make sure that you keep all of this in mind and ask yourself if any of these traits are common to you. Okay, are you used to saying children should be seen and not heard, and my way is the only way? You don't take feedback, and you're not very conversational with your child when you're giving them rules. So some of the cons of this style is that the child tends to be timid. They tend to obey out of fear. They are unsure of themselves. They tend not to be able to think out of the box. They can be taken advantage of by people in authority because they tend to see authority as this very scary figure. Whatever they say is what goes. And sometimes they can be taken advantage of by people who might not have the best intentions. But if a child has been wired to think about authority as somebody who you never question, you never ask any questions for clarification, you can ask questions from authority in a respectful way. So if your child never learns that, then this is sometimes when they can fall victim to people around them who wield a sense of authority over them. And then sometimes these children grow up to have self-esteem issues later in life. So these are just, obviously not all of this will always happen, but these are some of the cons that you want to keep in mind. Okay. Now the next style is the permissive parenting style. The permissive parenting style, it can also be called neglectful or distracted parenting style. They're low on limits. They're the parents who almost anything goes. They do not establish boundaries. They essentially let the kids raise themselves. Some common traits of these are they want to be their child's friend rather than parents. They're very busy with work and other activities. They want their child to have everything to fit in. So they want to give their child everything, the newest phones, the newest gadgets, the newest clothes, everything new, 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 now. They want to be current with their child. They allow their child to do whatever they want, use phones without any guidance, eat junk food if they feel like all day. They hardly ask their children about schoolwork or homework. For example, now that we're at home and it's online learning, probably the parents will say, I can't be bothered with whether or not my child is learning online, whatever. If you don't want to do schoolwork, you don't have to. And they allow their children to do sleepovers in homes they don't even know sometimes. I've heard examples of that. A child goes over to do a sleepover in a home where you have no clue who the parents are, you don't know anything about their home, but you send your child to go spend the night in that house. And then when unfortunate things happen, everybody suffers, including the child. So some pros here is it seems that the child is going to like it because you are a friendly parent. So your child is going to tend to like you because you let them do what they want to do. So right now it seems like it's fun. But let's talk about some of the cons here. Kids tend to struggle academically. They may exhibit more behavioral problems because they don't appreciate authority and rules. And sometimes they make some very grave mistakes because they're exposed to things they have no business being exposed to. All right, let's talk about the next style, the helicopter parenting style. These are parents who want to do everything for their child and with their child. They are always hovering. Just think of a helicopter always hovering above you. That's what the helicopter parenting style is. Some of the common traits here is they want to help make their child's life easier, and so they do everything for them. They do not teach them to be responsible. They do their chores. They don't want them to suffer, so they clean up their mistakes for them all the time. They tend to make excuses for the children. They fight with teachers on the children's behalf. They do homework for them, etc. They want to go everywhere with the children if they can, or they send a nanny with them everywhere. Your child is 14, 15, you're still sending them to your friend's house with a nanny. Hello, that's not okay. So once again, the pros here is that the parent seems to be very helpful and caring. However, the cons are the child does not learn how to be responsible, to stand up for themselves, and as an adult, they will struggle to be independent because they've had somebody do everything for them right from when they were children. Okay, now the authoritative parenting style. Here, the parent is warm and loving, but also high on limit setting and establishing boundaries. So here they tend to explain reasons behind their rules. They enforce rules and they give consequences. So the children are expected to behave. It's just that it's in a more warm and loving way. They have high limits, but they establish boundaries, but it's done in a much more humane, kind way. They enforce rules and give consequences. They tend to take a child's feelings into considerations. The pros here are that you build a good relationship with your child and you seek to understand your child and you seek for your child to understand you. Now, of all the styles we've mentioned, authoritarian, permissive/neglectful, helicopter, this is one of the best styles that we've mentioned so far. This style is generally seen as one of the better ones according to research. The children of these types of parents to do that because they understand their parents' perspective. They might not like it all, but they understand where their parents are coming from. They understand why there are rules. They understand why they were being punished. Or the consequences that came from, inappropriate or wrong or bad behavior. These children tend to do better. But I want to talk about a newer parenting style that started to come out that's even better than a lot of the ones we've talked about before, all the ones we've mentioned here. And it's one called the intentional parenting style. Now, what's fantastic about this parenting style, first of all, is that it intentionally combines the best aspects of all the other ones, which is really the authoritative, not the authoritarian. Authoritarian is very dictator style. authoritative is, I'm a figure of authority in your life as a parent. However, I'm doing it in a more warm and loving way than just saying, these are my rules, that's it, no questions asked. So the intentional parent combines that with more effective styles and brings in emotional intelligence and mindfulness. So that is an intentional parent. They bring in emotional intelligence and mindfulness together. Some of the common traits here are they have an awareness about the decisions that you're making as a parent, and you're aware about how it's affecting your child's development, both positively and negatively. So in every moment, you're paying attention to what you're doing, the decisions you're making, and how is it affecting your child. You focus on fostering a deep relationship with your child, with your children. That is a big deal for you. You want to have a deep, close relationship, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens from regularly spending quality time, communicating, being there for them, and understanding the world from their perspective. That decisions are not based on what everybody else is doing, what is easiest at the time. You're very focused on making sure that your decisions are based on what is best for your child, and it's not based on what is easy or what everybody else is doing. You have good communication skills with your child through the years. You build it. It doesn't just happen. You're flexible to change based on the season. So for example, maybe how you're parenting right now during the lockdown, the pandemic, might be slightly different from when routine was normal, get up, go to school, go out. You realize that things have changed. So you are a little bit more flexible in some of the things that you might be allowing your child to do or how you're communicating at this time. You're a very flexible parent who's mindful of what is going on in every season. So if your child is particularly anxious right now, or worried, or fearful, or think something is going to happen to them or to you, you will be parenting them very differently right now. Or you have a child who suddenly a milestone in their life has been taken away. For example, there is no graduation ceremony. You want to be mindful of that fact. And you want to make sure that you're there for them. You don't just stick to all my rules are my rules type of behavior. You help your child understand life in general. Failure, for example, is feedback. Grit is important. What is grit? The ability to stay focused and stay on what it is that you want to achieve. You don't give up easily and all of that. So lastly, you realize as an intentional parent that you are a mirror for your child and they model the behaviors that you want because you are doing them. So it's not about saying something and doing something else. Children are known to do what you do more than what you say. So if you want them to be mindful, you have to show that. If you want them to be okay with apologizing, you have to be able to apologize. It doesn't make you any less of an adult or their parent because you're able to say, I'm sorry about that. Or I'm sorry I shouted on you. Or I'm sorry that I thought you did that when you didn't. It's okay. What you're showing your child is when I say I want you to be mindful and intentional, I'm also that as well. Okay, so some of the pros in this style is that your child feels very loved and secure. They understand how the world works, and they're very confident asking questions. They grow up very secure. Okay, now parenting problems appear. Research shows that authoritative and intentional parents raise the best adults. Parenting problems can come up when the parenting style is not modified to fit the age and temperament of the child. So that's a reality. If your child has not being parented the right way based on their age and temperament, you can have some parenting problems. When you think about your style, always think about the ultimate goal. What do you want? That's what it means to be intentional. So if you don't really care about a close relationship, or you think you can build a close relationship when they become adults, right now all you want is to be firm and hard and tough, and you want them to be fearful of you as their parent, you just want them to obey at all means, then that's fine. But if you say, I've looked at examples, I want my children and I to be friends when they become older, and to do that, I know I must have friendliness as a part of my parenting toolkit. I must be intentional. I must spend quality time with them. I have to be ready to explain why we have the rules we have in the house as a family. We have values. We talk about this. I want the child to understand the home they're coming from. All those things are very important. So when you know all of that, it's very easy. It's almost like building a muscle. If you want a six-pack, you're going to exercise. You can't give up. And the minute you stop for a 1 month, your tummy will get a little flabby. So I'm literally pulling up my, I'm thinking about my tummy at this very time. So it's like a muscle. You need to practice. The more you practice, the easier it gets. So you have to be very mindful of the kind of parenting style that you want to employ and the reason why and the kind of adult you are raising. This brings me to another course that I teach, which is the parenting vision board. A lot of us don't spend the time to do that, but if you spend the time to do that for each child, a parenting vision board is about the child you want to raise, the adult you'd like to see down the line, putting all of that in place and then deciding the steps you're going to take now to get you there. So it's really important that you do that for yourself. And if you want to go through that course with me, I can also take you through that. Now, it's important. All of this is also said to say that parenting problems appear when we don't align our parenting style with the child that God has given us. We've come home with a child who has some natural characteristics, genes, DNA, things about them that's unique to them. So you cannot copy and paste your parenting style for child A to child B. It's not possible. But the only way to ensure that your parenting problems don't appear is that you're very intentional and mindful about what is working, what's not working, what do you need to change to fit your child. So let's talk about some of the let's talk about some of the love languages that's important for us to know, because that will help us know our child's style. Okay? Now, understanding your child's love languages. Most of us know the 5 love languages, but it's usually from the perspective of love with your spouse or somebody you're dating. What we want to do here is talk about understanding your child's love language. So there are generally 5 different types, and I'll talk about them real quick and give you the examples of the parenting styles that would match that. So does your child want you to take time to read to them, to talk to them, to do things with them? That's a quality time child. That's a child that quality time is important to them. That's a child that wants to spend quality time with you. Okay, then what about the child who likes cuddles, who wants you to hug them, give them high five, they want to cuddle with you? That's a child whose love language is physical touch. So imagine you have a child like that, and every time they want to hug, you're like, go away, Joe, you're a big boy. What's wrong with you? Why do you want to hug? Stop it. You're just killing your child. The child is not feeling connected to you. There's nothing wrong with the hug. There's nothing wrong with the high five. There's nothing wrong with giving them a fist bump. If your child likes that, do it. The first one we talked about is quality time. If your child wants you to spend quality time with them, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You want to spend that time with them. All your child needs sometimes is 10 minutes, 15 minutes with you, and they feel loved, their emotional tank is full, and they go on. So why don't you do it? It's very easy for us to do it. Sometimes we don't do it because we think we want to make our children stronger and firm and do things themselves. But what you're not allowing for is that nurturing and building a relationship. Now, acts of service, that's a child who wants you to do things for them. So they ask you, can you tie my shoelaces for me? Can you pick out my clothes? It's not that they can't. Their love language is acts of service. It's you doing things for them. What you can do is, because you still want to build their ability to take care of themselves and their independence, you want to talk about doing things together. So if your child continuously says, pick my clothes for me, get to a point where you say, all right, why don't we go to your room? You pick 2 choices and I'll pick one. You're still getting them to do things for themselves, but you're doing it together. So it's about being, remember, intentional. You're thinking, what do I want long term? I want a child who can do things themselves, aka in this case, pick out good clothes for themselves to wear. However, I understand that this is my child's love language, so I'm going to find a way to marry the 2. You see? Now, presents is another one. Some children just love getting gifts. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it. You want to give them things that are appropriate for their age. And you want the gifts you give them to be helpful to them rather than just what they want because they want it. You don't want to encourage materialism. So this is not the time to give a child the latest iPhone because they asked for it. But if your child likes gifts, give them things that are useful to them. Maybe they like to draw, buy them a crayon, a box of crayons, buy them a new coloring book, things that are age appropriate. If your child likes to get presents, make a big show of it. Now, what about words of affirmation? Some children love and thrive on praises. I think a lot of children, almost every child, this is part of their love language, especially when they're younger. Who doesn't like hearing something nice and kind said about them? But some children thrive on this more than others. So imagine as a child who looks for your praise, who wants you to say, well done, you did a good job, I'm proud of you, I love you. And that child never hears those things because you just don't understand, number one, that that is their style, or you feel that it's going to make your child weak if you give words of affirmation. And I'm not saying say things like you're so beautiful, you're gorgeous. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you did a good job, I see you tried your best, I'm proud of you for trying, I'm proud of you for not giving up. What can we do better? What do you think you can do better? How can I help you to do better? You know, I'm so proud of you when you do this. I like the fact that you helped your sibling. Those types of language is what we're talking about. So there are several things that you can say to a child that will build up their confidence level and make them feel very focused on wanting to do the best because they know you believe they can do the best. Right. So these are some of the parenting styles. Obviously, some children will have a little bit of everything, but some will have a more predominant one. And we're just saying pay attention to the different styles and pay attention to maybe you've never done it before. Start spending time now that you're in lockdown with your children and understand what they respond to more. What do they like to do a little bit more of? What do they respond to better? What are the things that they're asking you to do with them repeatedly? Those will give you clues and signs, and you can use that to determine what your child's style is so that you can, superimpose your parenting style on top of it. Now, let's pick two examples here that would go really bad. So imagine your child loves words of affirmation, but you're a authoritarian parent who says, my rules of the highway. So your child does something wrong and you use harsh language on them. I'm disappointed. You're so stupid. Why are you like this? Why can't you be like that person? You compare them to people. You're killing that child's spirit. You're killing that child's spirit. Even if you want to be authoritarian, you want to think, am I killing this child's confidence? Am I killing this child's self-esteem? Is it really going to serve me long term that I have a child who obeys me out of fear, but I'm killing their spirit while not building a relationship? It's not going to pay you. And when you look at a lot of people and the regrets they have later in life, it's usually regrets of not being closer to their children. Let me pick another example. Imagine you have a child whose love language is quality time. They want to do things with you, but you're a neglectful or distracted parent. So you never have the time to do things with them. You're always busy. You're on every Insta live that's going out there. You're taking courses all the time. There's nothing wrong with development, self-development. But if it comes at the cost of spending quality time with your children, then that is a problem. So imagine your child wants to read a book with you, wants to watch a movie with you. They don't want you sending them to their room to watch Netflix on their own smart device while you do your own thing. They want to do it with you. Can you restructure your day so that your child can spend that time with you? Please, it's really important. Okay, let's pay. This time that we're all at home, I believe the people who are using it best are those who are intentional to say this is an opportunity like none before. We don't know when this will ever come around again. We don't know that we ever wanted to, but we're all together at home 24/7, most of us. How are we using the time? How are we going to look back and say, this is what I did during this time? What are we going to say was ours to show for it? Okay, so I want to talk about the modern day parenting struggles that tend to come in and how we struggle to connect as a family. I'm going to go through all of this so that we do have some time for Q&A. I'm seeing some questions that have been shared. First of all is digital media technology and screen time are a real problem for everybody. First of all, children between the ages of 2 to 5 should have no more than 1 hour per day of screen time. For most parents, that's absolutely unbelievable or unachievable. But this comes from the American Pediatric Association. This is their recommendation based on research. So it's up to you to either say, I'm going to ignore it, or I'm going to try as much as possible to keep their screen time to 1 hour as much as possible. It doesn't have to be exactly 1 hour. It can be 1 hour, 30 minutes. You know what I mean? You can be flexible, but if you keep in mind that it's important you monitor their screen time, you will then take actions to try to monitor their screen time. Okay, it's important that before bedtime they avoid screen time at least 1 hour before bed. It's really important. That's also research. It's backed by research. You want your child to, the blue light that comes from the devices. An hour before bedtime, let them do offline activities. Get ready for bed, take a shower, read a book, listen to music, dance, other things. But no screen time 1 hour before bedtime. You want to maintain daily screen-free times. Children need to do other things. They need to go outside. They need to read physical books. They need to use their hands to make things. There's a lot more that a child can do than be online all day. You want to set family media guidelines because, as a family, you must spend quality time together. And if you're not careful, as a modern day family, modern day parenting struggles includes the fact that it's difficult to find time to look each other in the eye, make eye connection, and talk one-on-one as a family. Okay, now the virtual world is eroding physical connection. And almost what has happened at this time is forcing us to realize that we live in the same house. We have to spend time together. This is a time for you to reset. If you're a parent that doesn't have a good relationship with your child, this is a perfect time to reset that. Lack of social interaction. We know a lot of people will be at a dinner table and everybody's on a device, nobody's talking. It's not healthy. And that's why we have one of the loneliest generations ever. Teenagers today are reporting higher levels of loneliness because they don't know how to have real social interactions that's not all behind a screen. Okay, helicopter parenting is also on the rise. Parents who feel they want to do everything for their children, they want their children to suffer, they want their children to have what they didn't have. What this tends to translate into is a parent who feels that they have to do everything and give you everything. It's not helpful. We've talked about that earlier in this session. Helicopter parenting does not raise a child who's independent and able to do things themselves and take responsibility for their actions. Okay, now distracted parenting is the other one we talked about. Most modern parents are distracted because even if you're not at work, you've closed for the day, you're probably spending time on your device on your favorite social media channels, scrolling, liking, posting, listening to an IG live. All those are great, but when you're distracted and there's not enough time for your family, for other things, your child usually is the one that suffers the most from being bottom of your priority list. And lastly, mental health is on the rise. Mental health illnesses is on the rise. So we have to be very mindful of this. It is one of the signs of the times that we're in now. There's a lot of mental health illnesses, and that comes from depression, that comes from inability to control your emotions, hormonal changes. There's so many things that could cause mental health illnesses. So we need to make sure that we're very mindful of that. And because a mental health illness is not the same as a physical one, you don't necessarily see somebody having a cold or breaking out in hives or having pain in their tummy. It can be easier to ignore, but as a parent, you must be able to identify the signs that your child or yourself might be struggling from some mental health illnesses and do something about it. Okay, so these are just some additional sources for you. We've talked about a lot, but honestly, for some people, this is the first time you're hearing a lot of this information. It might be a lot at once, but trust me, the more that you do it, the more that you work with people, these things become second nature. I've gone through years and years of training, doing all of this, so it's easier for me as a parent. I have a 12 and 10-year-old. It's much easier because this has been my line, but I understand that it is a struggle. I'm not perfect, by the way. My children are not perfect. My husband is not perfect, but definitely because I've spent a lot of time research, training on this material, on this area of parenting and family life, I know that it's something you can totally do. It's just something you have to focus on, and you have to be willing. You have to be willing to continue to work on it. Think of it as a muscle. Think of it as a muscle. The more you work on it, the stronger it becomes. So here are some resources. Top 10 things children need was an article I saw that I thought was very helpful. Understanding children's love language. You have an article specifically on that on Lagos Moms. Best and worst parenting styles as revealed by experts. If you want to read more on it, you can. Some parenting books to read. I have a page on Amazon that has a list of several parenting books that I recommend and all the kinds of products. You want to check it out. It's amazon.com/shop/LagosMoms. Some of the books I highlight here: 12 Huge Mistakes Parents Can Avoid by Tim Elmore is one of the all-time favorite parenting books I have ever read. Growing Up Social by Gary Chapman was also a great one about the influence of social media on our children. I recommend that. And there's another great book I read recently, Raising Exceptional Children by Bimbo Fola Alade. You also want to check that out. Now, for some quizzes. I love quizzes. Quizzes are great because they help you get some answers and it helps you think about yourself. It helps you think about different skills you might or might not have. So one of them is knowing your parenting style. It's a free quiz. You can take it. When the results you get will help you know where you lie. So you might have no idea what type you are. You might have a rough idea. Take the quiz. It helps you get an answer and you kind of know where you lie or what's predominant for you. And guess what? Your parenting style can also change because of life and stress and all of that. And your parenting style sometimes needs to change because your child is changing. So the style you used when your child was 5 might need to change when your child is 15. And then there's another one on stress. Sometimes our stress levels are so high and we don't know. And it's important you know that. So you can try that out and take it. And then lastly, when it comes to digital savvy parenting, listen, if you're raising a child today, your child is a digital native and you, my friend, are a digital alien. So to understand them, understand their language, understand how to be there for them in today's world, you probably want to take this survey and just figure out where do you fall? How savvy are you as a digital savvy parent so that you know what you need to get training for? Get training for, yes, and also equip yourself. We also have a subscription for that where on a monthly basis we'll go deep into one particular digital savvy area for parents, and that will be based on research. It'll be something very relevant for the times that we're in. And lastly, if you want to book a personal coaching call with me, you can do that through my website, yetiwilliams.com. So now we're going to take some questions. I got one question where a parent said that their child absolutely hates spending time with them. Every time they call them to talk to them, the child just rolls their eyes and says, nothing. I have nothing to say. I'm fine. How are you fine? You want to talk about anything? No. We all know that. We all get that. What I would advise is, if that's happening all the time, it's possible you haven't built a relationship with your child. So they're not used to talking to you. So when you call them to have a conversation with you, they're thinking, what's going on here? So you want to take it slow. You want to think about building a relationship with a new friend. You don't just say, come, sit down, talk to me by force. You ask them questions. What are they interested in? What are they thinking about? What are they working on? What are some of their dreams? What would they like to achieve? Build a relationship. It's slow and steady. It is not a sprint. It's like a marathon. It's long, you're going gently, you're managing your energy, you speed up sometimes, you slow down sometimes. It's an ongoing thing. So you don't want to rush it, because if you rush it and turn them off, every time you say, come, let's hang out, they're thinking, oh my God, here we go again. So you want to keep that in mind. We've talked so long. I feel like I've been talking forever, but I can talk about this stuff forever because honestly, I love children and I love particularly seeing intentional parents. I love seeing people who know that it's important to raise an adult that's going to be successful and independent and well-rounded and, focused on being the best that they can be. All right. So as always, if you want to contact me, our Instagram handle is @LagosMums. You can reach us there for a lot of content and DM me. My personal page is Yeti Williams. You can go to our website, LagosMums.com. And thank you so much for joining this webinar. And I hope to hear from you soon and share your successful parenting stories with me. Thanks a lot.